In the very early 60s or late 50s, the Duke of Edinburgh approached Sir Winston Churchill and sort of sounded him out on what sort of legacy he would like left behind, and he was interested in a scholarship on the condition that it was open to ordinary Australians. So on his death in 1964, in early 65, there was a door knock in Australia, and it's the first time, even to this day, that in the history of Australia, the banks opened on a Sunday in order to take the deposits of the collectors. About £2 million was raised. That has been invested, and currently we have significant millions that we then use as a way of funding our scholarships. As it says there, over 3,500 fellowships have been awarded. Next year is the 50th anniversary of the Winston Churchill Trust. We're about to announce the rounds of 2015 fellows. They'll be announced on the 1st of August at Government House. The average fellowship there is well over $20,000. Interestingly, I read a couple of days ago, out of interest, I saw an old paper clipping of the first notice of the 1965 awarding of the fellowships, and their travel was for periods of 8 months to 3 years. And I suppose I recently chatted to our oldest surviving fellow, and the issue was that, of course, the transport was mostly by boat and went via Hong Kong, and would take approximately 6 to 9 weeks to get to the destination before you'd start your study. Interestingly, Joyce McGrath is one of our oldest fellows, and she mentions that she actually went via Hong Kong so she could pick up the newfangled reel-to-reel tape recorder, which is about the size of a small television, that she could interview people with, and she still has it to this day, and it's on display at the Library of Victoria. So we give about 100 fellowships away every year. It's about 20 or so in Victoria. We give general fellowships. It's all about the project. And some of you might think, well, I don't necessarily have a project at this stage. Certainly the Churchill Fellowship is one to keep in the back of the mind for when you have that fellowship, have that project that you need to take that step further and you haven't got the funds or the support to do so. The Churchill Fellowship is a great opportunity. What we look for is why, firstly, the project will be a benefit to Australia, but why you are the person to do that project and why you need to travel overseas. And there's a lot of argument about whether or not we still need to travel because of the ability to access information off the internet. But as we find from every fellow that comes back, the ability to immerse yourself in the projects that are being conducted overseas allows you to get information that far exceeds what you expect to. And in fact, everybody comes back and explains the same thing. As I go through at the end of it, I'll just run past some of the last ones that we had 2 weeks ago who received their medallions. Just some basic stuff. It's Australian citizens only. Applicants must be over 18 years of age. I think the youngest fellow might well have been Marita Jeng from Melbourne University. I'm not sure how old she was. She was about 19 or 20 when she went over to study the ability to encourage more females to study engineering and science, and of course she was the founder of Robo Girls. The oldest fellow was recently Justice Bernard Teague, who ran our Fire Royal Commissions, and I believe Mr Teague is about 79 or so. So there's certainly no bar to age. It cannot be part of a tertiary study. So it can't be as an extension of your current degree or a PhD or a master's. That's not what it's about. It's about a project that you're passionate about that will benefit Australia, and it's not part of a tertiary award. Churchill was very adamant about that it can't be an extension of a tertiary training. And you must have experience in the field that you propose to travel on. The way that the panels are set up in that their projects are divided into 7 categories. The panels are chaired by people who are experts in their fields. And so it would be very doubtful that you could go before a panel and not have someone on there who's an expert in the field that you're planning to travel on. These Alexander Dunn and Douglas Dunn were the first twins to be awarded Churchill Fellows, and they're travelling shortly. So, applying for a fellowship, design your own project that provides a benefit to Australia. There is absolutely no limit to the imagination of the projects that we have funded out of the 3,000 fellows that have travelled. There has been some phenomenal projects and some amazing projects that have come back as a result of that. There's no restrictions on the subject matter or topic. A duration of 4 weeks to about 8 weeks is what we prefer. And that's depending on the project. Having said that, we have also given extended projects in the arts field. For example, people who study in other countries with musicians. For example, I think 8 months last year was for a gentleman to study with a pianist in France for that time. The travel must be overseas, and we do, like the other fellowships, expect a project and professional referees are required. And when we suggest that, we're looking for a professional referee that is not necessarily related to the field you're in, but certainly is one that will be able to explain to us about your ability to undertake the project. The project referee must be the biggest hitter you can find in the industry. So we would expect that if it's, and we're not necessarily saying that you need to know them, but certainly if it was an area, being government or medicine, we would expect it at ministerial level, for example, that we can then interrogate that referee as to the value of that project. Just some examples there. Recently, the establishment of a lever cell bank, OH&S on farms, strategy to prevent credit card fraud, Baroque music, and so on and so on. Just out of interest, on Friday night, some of the fellowships that we awarded our medallions to were people who had studied overcoming autism spectrum disorders in children, new treatments for brain injury, the impact of laws on the homeless, the consequence of abuse, neglect and exploitation of at-risk adults, therapeutic activities for aged patients, music for deaf children, falls prevention intervention for the elderly, new practices in environmental sustainability. Ironically, as dinner was served, we got a lecture from the optimal treatments for intestinal failure, closely followed by maggot infestation in cadavers, playwriting techniques, teaching elite vocational ballet, better leasing practices for farm succession, preventing obesity, social enterprise incubators, and private tuition of French double bass. So as you see, there is quite a very wide field of projects that are available. As I said, it is entirely open to any field of endeavour. The selection process itself requires you to put in a fairly minimalistic application at first. There is a screening process that is applied, and then you're invited to an initial interview in front of the panel of the discipline that you're applying for. Out of that, a small number of successful applicants are then put before the state panel, and again a further interview process occurs, in which case those people are graded, it goes off to the trust in Canberra, and about 2 months later you'll be notified as to whether or not you've been awarded a fellowship. If you're not successful, we expect that you'll apply again in terms of the ability to do your project. One of Churchill's traits is persistence, and so we value people who come back and back again until they're either successful or are told not to come back. So just on that, we also, as a fellowship alumni, we mentor prospective fellows. So if you are interested in a field and you wish someone to give you some advice, we will put you in touch with someone in that industry, and they will be able to mentor your application, your process, right through to hopefully the awarding of a fellowship. So my email address was up earlier. If you've got any queries at all, by all means, drop me an email at any stage. The website for the Trust also has our contact details, and the fellowships in each state are there to help you in the process. Applications open on the 1st of November this year. They're printed online on the Churchill Trust website, and there is a pack available if you want that. So again, any of the information that you want is available on both our websites. I'll be available afterwards if you wish to get some other further details. Thank you.